Alright, what it do, fellas? Welcome back to another one. In today's video, we've got quite the interesting slice of pie to talk about when looking at Astro. As we know, Square Enix has a very unusual, very strange absence from this mega PlayStation 30th anniversary celebration game, which is essentially what Astro is, although Astro will go on to become its own thing, and as of right now, it's looking like Astro is a brand new PlayStation mascot. Astro certainly is this big celebration of IPs that have had a lot to do with PlayStation over the years. Now, because of this, it's really jarring to see that there is zero Square Enix representation in the game, just considering if we're looking at both Cloud from Final Fantasy VII and Sora from Kingdom Hearts, these are two characters that are sort of a little bit synonymous with that of the PlayStation brand, as of course these games, being as iconic as they are, got their start on PlayStation. Well, finally, we have a bit of a comment here from the actual director of Astro Nicholas Doucette, sort of talking about this. While it doesn't give us a straight-up answer, per se, I think it actually suggests that the information that I personally received, some inside information back in May of this year, is all the more credible. So recently, GameFile sat down with Nicholas Doucette to talk about Astro. I'm going to pull the article here from Kotaku, as there is a bit of a subscription paywall there on GameFile's website. Nicholas was asked about how the game's over 300 bots were selected and created in a recent interview. He said, "I was thinking, well, maybe half of the ones we're wishing for will make it. In the end, in fact, almost 100% are in, because these partners just raised their hand and said absolutely." On the subject of missing bots from Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, and Nier, Doucette was diplomatic about why they didn't end up in the game. He mentioned, "It's difficult to comment on that. We really respect the choice of each publisher." So that's the only thing that he said in regards to Square Enix characters missing from Astro. A little bit of a beating around the bush kind of comment, to be fair, but if we take both parts of what he's saying right here towards the bots getting selected and how most IP holders for these characters were absolutely on board, yes, we want our character in this game, along with him mentioning, yeah, it's a little bit difficult to comment on the Square Enix stuff, I think this outright confirms the information that I got back in May. To reiterate this, back in May, I received a Discord message from someone that had known a previous employee at PlayStation. I'm not going to disclose the names of these people as they want to remain anonymous, but I'm going to read the entire message here to give the full context. Apparently, from all of the companies that Sony asked to be part of the game, Square Enix was the only one who wasn't very open about the idea. They were asking for licensing fees and weren't very open about just giving them their IPs. Unfortunately, they don't understand or see how this is a great marketing opportunity for their IPs and brand, whereas all of the other companies, Konami, Capcom, Bandai, were way more open and offered their IPs to Astro. It's great that we're going to get so many awesome characters and IPs in the game, but unfortunately, Square Enix's IPs will not be a part of it. So I received this message on the 6th of May. This outright confirming that Sora, or really any Square Enix representation for that matter, is not going to be in Astro. This is like 4 months before the release of the game, and the fact that this information confirms that there wasn't going to be anything to do with Square in the game, yeah, it tells me, okay, there's probably some validity around this. And just looking at how, I guess, Nicholas Doucette sort of tried to avoid straight out answering this question just by mentioning, yeah, it's difficult to answer that one, because obviously it would be incredibly awkward to say, well, Square Enix were asking for money, whereas all other companies here were just like, bro, take my character and do what you want with them. Sleep with them if you need to, all good, the reins are yours. This confirms to me that this information is very correct, and that, yeah, Square Enix were asking for a little bit of this in exchange for their characters. You would think, though, at the very least, we would see something like Nier being in Astro, just considering that Yoko Taro likes to have 2B in quite literally every single game possible. At this point, the sheer amount of collabs with Nier Automata is pretty staggering. Though with the recent Stellar Blade and Nier news, it was mentioned by the official Nier account, most likely Yoko Taro, that yeah, they're open to collabing with any other companies to put 2B in the game or Nier, so long as the price is right. So that would probably line up with the comment here of mentioning that Square Enix were asking for licensing fees for their characters. Now at this stage, we're all hoping that a future Astro Bot DLC will include, at the very least, a Final Fantasy VII Cloud Bot. It wasn't too long ago that we got the announcement that there is going to be some Astro Bot DLC, including some new speedrun difficult levels being added into the game, along with 10 new bots. This is obviously exciting because this gives us a chance to possibly receive some Square Enix bots. However, I don't think that's happening. We already know that the Helldivers as well as Eve from Stellar Blade are going to be in the game, and we actually already knew that, at least looking at Eve, she was going to be added in at a later date into the game just via the credit section of Astro Bot. Looking here, we can see that Shift Up were credited, and we've also got another company here, Ubisoft, where none of their characters appear in the full game, credited for Beyond Good and Evil, Assassin's Creed, Rayman, which likely suggests that out of the 10 bots that are going to be added in this upcoming DLC, a good chunk of them will be Ubisoft characters. If Square Enix characters were going to be a part of this new DLC, no doubt they would have already been credited in the credit section of the game. So no, I don't think that Square Enix characters are getting in with this new DLC, because it does seem as if this DLC was either planned or mostly finished by the time the full game released, due to these other companies that don't have representation in the base game, as they were already credited in the credit section. Honestly, it's a pretty awkward situation, and also just a little bit mind-boggling too. Like, Square Enix are very seemingly stingy when it comes to sharing their characters to have cross-collaborations with other companies. It's surprising too, because as we know, the Buster Sword was in Astro's Playroom. And if all of this information is correct, no doubt it actually cost both Team Asobi and PlayStation some amount of money to get the Buster Sword into the game. And what's likely even more money to actually have the Cloud Bot, because it's simply just the weapon and not a Cloud Bot in Playroom. One other thing that I quickly wanted to mention here that was brought up in this interview was the absence of Sweet Tooth, the main character from PlayStation's Twisted Metal series. It was mentioned here other missing bots like Twisted Metal's psychopathic clown Sweet Tooth were at Team Asobi's discretion. Nicholas mentioned they advised us they didn't force us, and we agreed that it was better to leave this character out. Because if you're playing with your kids, we don't want you to have to explain what this character does. Now, please don't get me wrong here. I love Nicholas Doucet. Just looking at some of the interviews that he's been involved with recently, he's very clearly a passionate developer and director. He just seems like a really nice guy. But I do feel like this comment right here is just a little bit contradicting, because okay, if you don't want some character references in Astro Bot due to the actual lore and history of that character coming from an R-rated game, well, it's like, maybe take a look at your game though. Like, you've already got Pyramid Head in here from Silent Hill, you got Joel from The Last of Us who mutilates zombies and people with bricks, you got the Sightjacker from Siren, and you've even got the Hunter from Bloodborne. All of these characters are from R-rated adult video games, and there's also more. The list goes on. Like, you know, obviously you got like Resident Evil, etc., all of that. And sure, Sweet Tooth is like a murderous, insane serial killer clown, but it's like, what? It's like, I don't know. I didn't really understand this comment at all. If your kid's really asking you what said character does from said video game, make something up. You know, like, you think there's gonna be some kids asking what Eve from Stellar Blade does? Good luck with that one. It's also confusing too, because in an Astro Bot concept art, we can clearly see a concept of a Sweet Tooth bot. So yeah, very strange. So at this stage, unless we're actually going to be receiving some big paid DLC and Team Asobi managed to negotiate with Square Enix, maybe Square Enix then come to their senses, it doesn't look like we're getting any Square representation in the game. Incredibly disappointing, just because, yeah, this game is a big celebration piece of content, and yet these two very iconic characters that have a long-running history with PlayStation are just missing. It feels very jarring. However, guys, leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I would love to know. Consider subscribing to the channel to keep up with all the antics going on here. Check out my other social media platforms. As always, a massive thank you to my turkey-tastic patrons. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk real soon.